What if the biggest difference between wealth and struggle wasn't money at all, but mindset? What if the way you perceive the world, the thoughts you repeat every morning, and the beliefs you carry deep inside you are the real architects of your reality? This is not philosophy or vague motivation. It is the foundation upon which every successful life is built. Tony Robbins, one of the most influential personal development figures of our time, has spent decades studying patterns in human behavior. He's worked with presidents, billionaires, athletes, and everyday people, and he discovered a universal truth. People who live in abundance don't necessarily have more resources. They simply access a different state of mind. In Tony's own words, it's not about the lack of resources, it's about a lack of resourcefulness. That shift, one from blame to ownership, from fear to certainty, is the heart of what separates the wealthy from the broke, the fulfilled from the frustrated. The world doesn't change first. You do. But let's break this down. What does it mean to live with an abundance mindset? It begins with a simple but radical idea. There is enough. Enough money. Enough opportunity. Enough love. Enough energy. Not in a naive or delusional way, but in a way that rejects the story of scarcity that society often feeds us. From a young age, we're told to compete for limited seats, fight for scarce attention, and cling to what we have because there may not be more. This programming becomes invisible, baked into our decisions, our language, even our identity. And so, we shrink. We hesitate. We settle. Tony challenges this deeply. He teaches that abundance is a decision, not a condition. It's something you train into your nervous system. Abundance starts when you begin to focus not on what's missing, but on what's possible. It's a pattern of attention. Scarcity says, why try? There's never enough. Abundance says, what if I become more and create more? Scarcity waits for external validation. Abundance builds from internal certainty. This mindset affects every part of life. Relationships, health, finances, leadership. Abundance doesn't mean spending recklessly or pretending you're rich. It means knowing that you are the source of growth, value, and creativity. It means believing that giving doesn't subtract from you, it multiplies you. You've probably seen people with very little who are generous, calm, and powerful. They don't cling. Why? Because they believe there's always more coming. And you've probably seen wealthy people who live in constant fear of losing. Their bank account may be full, but their mindset is broke. Abundance is emotional wealth. And emotional wealth always precedes material wealth. Tony often says that success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And fulfillment doesn't come from more stuff, it comes from meaning. You create meaning when you grow, when you contribute, when you live with purpose. And all of that starts with mindset. It's important to understand that the brain is wired for survival, not abundance. The default mode of the mind is to scan for threats, to prepare for the worst. This was useful for our ancestors, but in today's world, it creates anxiety, limitation, and doubt. That's why abundance must be trained. It must be chosen. And it must be practiced daily. Tony introduces the concept of state, a combination of your physiology, focus, and language. In an abundant state, your shoulders are back, your breath is deep, your words are strong, your questions are empowering. You ask, how can I make this work? Instead of, why is this happening to me? That shift alone can redirect the entire trajectory of your life. Abundance is not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about accessing the part of yourself that remains calm in chaos. It's trusting that no matter what happens, you will figure it out. That confidence is magnetic. It attracts opportunity, connection, solutions. People respond not to your circumstances, but to your energy. Abundance is energetic leadership. The most successful people Tony has coached weren't necessarily the smartest or most connected, but they had a bias toward possibility. They trained themselves to think bigger. They built habits of gratitude. They didn't wait for evidence. They became the evidence. This is why one of Tony's core practices is priming. Each morning, he does a short routine that includes breathwork, gratitude, and intention. Why? Because if you don't program your mind, the world will do it for you. And the world programs you with fear, with limitation, with comparison. Abundance isn't found, it's generated. It's not something outside of you. It's a frequency you emit. When you begin to live this way, something strange happens. Doors open, people appear, timing aligns. What you once called coincidence now feels like momentum. This isn't magic. It's alignment. When your inner world changes, your outer world eventually follows. But the real transformation begins when you start to act from this mindset, not just think it. You make decisions differently. You invest in yourself. You take risks from conviction, not desperation. You trust your instincts. And most importantly, you stop waiting. Abundance is active, not passive. You're no longer a victim of circumstances. You become a creator of them. And that's the core message. Abundance isn't about money, it's about power. Personal power. The power to direct your attention. The power to rewrite your story. The power to choose generosity over fear, and courage over comfort. Tony teaches that emotion is what drives action. And abundance is an emotional state long before it becomes a financial one. So if you want to change your life, don't start with your bank account. Start with your beliefs. Start with your rituals. Start with your questions. Because the questions you ask determine the quality of the answers you receive. So ask bigger questions. Train your mind to see opportunity where others see obstacles. Don't ask, "How do I survive?" Ask, "How do I thrive and help others rise with me?" That's the mindset of abundance. That's the beginning of a life that multiplies rather than shrinks. This is just the beginning. In the next section, we'll explore how childhood conditioning shapes our beliefs about wealth, and how to break free from inherited scarcity programming. Because abundance isn't just about the now, it's also about healing the past and reprogramming the future. If abundance is a mindset, then it's not something you're born with. It's something you're conditioned into, or conditioned away from. Most people don't realize that their beliefs about money, success, and self-worth were installed in them long before they had the chance to choose for themselves. These beliefs come from parents, teachers, culture, religion, even media. And they operate silently in the background, like a program running your entire system. Until you bring them into the light, you'll repeat the same patterns no matter how hard you try to change your results. Tony Robbins often says, "The strongest force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves." If deep down you believe you're not worthy, not smart enough, not capable, or not meant to be wealthy, then no matter how much you hustle or visualize, you'll sabotage your own progress. Not because you're lazy, but because your identity is fighting back. You can't outperform your self-image for long. That's why inner work is not optional, it's essential. Let's take a moment to ask, what did you learn about money growing up? Were you told that rich people are greedy? That money doesn't grow on trees? That wanting more is selfish? These ideas sound innocent, but they plant seeds of scarcity. They teach you that desiring abundance is wrong, or even dangerous. And so, you shrink your ambition to stay safe. You undercharge, overgive, or avoid money altogether, then call it humility. But deep down, there's tension. Because your soul craves expansion, and your programming craves protection. This is the internal war so many people live with. They want more, but they're afraid of what it means to want more. That's the trap of unconscious scarcity. Tony teaches that awareness is the first step to power. When you can identify the limiting stories you've been telling yourself, stories you didn't even choose, you create the space to replace them. Here's the key: beliefs are not facts. They are decisions. Often unconscious ones, but decisions nonetheless. You didn't choose to believe that success requires sacrifice, or that you must struggle to deserve abundance. But you can choose to unlearn it. You can choose a new story. One that empowers rather than restricts. One that expands you rather than diminishes you. This is where we move from awareness to reprogramming. Tony uses tools like neuroassociative conditioning to interrupt old patterns and install new ones. The idea is simple. If a belief causes pain, it must be linked to something you no longer desire. And if a new belief leads to power, it must be reinforced through emotion, repetition, and experience. You're not just a thinker. You're a feeler. The beliefs that stick are the ones that are felt deeply. That's why breakthroughs often come during moments of emotional intensity. You suddenly realize, I don't have to live like this anymore. And that decision becomes a new identity. But you don't have to wait for a breakdown to have a breakthrough. You can train your mind daily to embrace abundance. That's why rituals are so powerful. Morning routines, gratitude practices, affirmations, visualization. These aren't fluffy exercises, they are neurological rewiring. They help you interrupt the old script and write a new one. T. Harv Eker, in his book Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, echoes this truth. If you want to change the fruits, you have to change the roots. And the roots are your subconscious beliefs. He divides people into two basic financial blueprints, the scarcity blueprint and the abundance blueprint. One sees opportunity, the other sees threat. One focuses on growth, the other on survival. These aren't just financial lenses, they shape your entire reality. When you realize that your beliefs aren't you, they're just inherited stories, you become free. Free to observe. Free to challenge. Free to choose again. You're no longer a slave to conditioning. You become the architect of your future. Think of it like this. Every belief is a lens. Scarcity lenses distort reality. They make you see obstacles where there are opportunities. They shrink your goals. They make you fear rejection, failure, risk. Abundance lenses, on the other hand, make you curious. They help you take smart risks. They encourage learning, connection, contribution. The lens you use becomes the world you live in. This is why identity work is central to abundance. Tony teaches that lasting change only happens when you shift not just behavior, but identity. You don't say, "I want to be rich." You declare, "I am someone who creates value." You don't say, "I want to save money." You say, "I am a wise and abundant steward of my finances." Because your brain is always looking to stay consistent with who you believe you are. You can start small. Identity is built through evidence. Every small win counts. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you prove your new identity is real. That's why change requires repetition and celebration. The more you associate pleasure with growth, the more your nervous system craves it. Let's not forget the emotional side. Many people are blocked from abundance because they carry unresolved guilt, shame, or fear around money. Maybe they saw money destroy relationships. Maybe they felt ignored or judged for wanting more. Maybe they feel unworthy of success because of past failures. These emotional wounds must be healed, not ignored. You cannot manifest abundance from a place of emotional poverty. You must learn to forgive yourself, to release guilt, to let go of shame. That's not weakness, it's wisdom. As we move forward, we'll explore how to shift from external metrics of success to internal alignment. How to move from comparison to clarity. From hustle to harmony. Because abundance is not just having more, it's being more. It's living in a way that honors your values, your vision, your voice. In the next section, we'll dive into specific strategies Tony teaches for creating abundance in your career, relationships, and finances. You'll discover how focus, language, physiology, and contribution all shape your reality. Because mindset alone is not enough, it must be backed by action, and that action must come from the right emotional fuel. Abundance is not a destination, it's a way of being. It's not found in your bank account, your possessions, or even your accomplishments. It's found in how you show up every single day. Do you act from fear or from faith? Do you contract when faced with challenges or expand into possibility? That's the true test. Because life will always test you. Not to break you, but to reveal you. And the way you respond reveals whether your foundation is built on scarcity or abundance. Tony Robbins says, "Life is happening for you, not to you." This isn't just a feel-good phrase, it's a shift in responsibility. When you adopt an abundant mindset, you stop blaming the economy, your past, your parents, your circumstances. You reclaim power. Not control over everything, but the power to choose your response. And in that space, between what happens and how you react, your future is written. We've already seen how beliefs shape identity, and how identity drives behavior. But let's now take it further, into strategy. Because mindset without action is just inspiration. Abundance is not about dreaming, it's about doing. It's about aligning your thoughts, emotions, and habits with a version of you that already lives in abundance. That version is not waiting for permission. It's already here. You just have to step into it. Tony teaches that there are 4 forces that shape your experience of life: focus, language, meaning, and emotion. And each of these can either serve scarcity or abundance. Let's start with focus. Whatever you focus on, you feel. Focus on what's missing, and you feel lack. Focus on what's working, and you feel momentum. Most people live in a mental loop of what's wrong, what they don't have, what they haven't done, who they're not. But those thoughts are not neutral. They direct your energy. They determine what actions you take, or avoid. Abundant people train their focus. They ask better questions. Instead of, "Why can't I get ahead?" they ask, "What's one thing I can do today to move forward?" That shift seems small, but it's everything. Your brain is like a search engine. Ask it the right question, and it gives you empowering answers. Next is language. The words you use create your internal reality. Scarcity is full of words like never, always, can't, stuck, impossible. These are absolutes that freeze growth. But abundance uses fluid language: I'm learning, I'm shifting, I'm growing, I'm open. This language keeps you moving. And motion creates emotion. Which brings us to meaning. Tony says, nothing in life has any meaning except the meaning you give it. That means the same event can be a breakdown or a breakthrough, depending on the story you attach to it. Abundant thinkers reframe failure as feedback. They turn rejection into redirection. They don't make setbacks personal, they make them powerful. Because meaning is never fixed. It's chosen. And finally, emotion. This is the fuel. Without emotional energy, none of the above matters. Emotion is what makes goals magnetic. It's what keeps you going when results are slow. But here's the secret: you don't need results to feel abundance. You can feel it now. Through gratitude. Through presence. Through contribution. And when you feel abundant, you act abundant. That's when the world starts responding to you differently. Tony Robbins emphasizes state management. Your state is your emotional home. And if you want to change your life, you must raise your emotional standards. No more living in frustration, worry, or overwhelm. That doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It means choosing empowering emotions even in imperfect moments. It means conditioning joy, certainty, and determination until they become your baseline. So how do you build that emotional muscle? Through daily practices. Morning priming. Breath work. Movement. Gratitude. Visualization. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities for anyone serious about transformation. Just like you train your body, you must train your mind and spirit. Another key pillar of abundance is contribution. When you give beyond yourself, time, energy, love, service, you step out of scarcity. Scarcity says, "There's not enough for me." Abundance says, "There's more than enough to share." Tony often reminds us that the secret to living is giving. Not because giving makes you a better person, but because it makes you a more connected person. And connection is where true wealth begins. This doesn't mean you abandon ambition. On the contrary, abundance supercharges ambition. It frees you from fear and makes you dangerous in the best way. You stop chasing success from a place of lack and start creating from a place of overflow. That's when things click. That's when opportunities find you. That's when you become magnetic. But remember, abundance isn't a one-time shift. It's a practice. A decision you make every day. Some days it's easy. Some days it's not. But over time, it becomes who you are. Not because you've arrived, but because you've aligned. Let's close with one final truth. You are already enough. You are not lacking. You are not broken. You are not behind. The journey to abundance isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you really are underneath all the fear, doubt, and conditioning. It's about removing the layers that never belonged to you. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth, you unlock your power. Because when you realize you don't need abundance to feel whole, abundance begins to chase you. This is your invitation to rise. Not someday. Not when it's convenient. Step into the version of you that thinks, acts, and lives from abundance. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. Because the future belongs to those who refuse to be ruled by fear. And that includes you.